my grandma maybe 20, 30 years ago went shopping in Italy and came back, and it was so easy, so simple, no problem. If my mom wants to do this today, it's so
I
problematic.
said,
Like
yes,
last
but I
year,
hope you realize that if you are going to go on this particular holiday without a booster vaccination to Austria, you are traveling illegally. One very important aspect of borders is to create there and here nations. And there are still people who say, guys, I really think that the passport system is not a good idea. I think it is discriminative because the countries that now are under visa of the nations, often countries that were formerly colonized. So what happens is that these people say they're gonna sleep or proper house, they will be washing the socks in the sea. And then we find out people there. And that is the truth. Tourists also from Europe that enjoy all inclusive on this one. And I think that is mostly because the way borders operate nowadays is really connected to capitalism.
that's why human rights are out there. But we should do the human rights.
Yeah. What should we do with the human rights? Yeah, to be honest, I find the whole human rights thing very difficult because that is.
Hi, Yentl. How are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you.
And you? Are you in? All fine. Thank you for accepting my invitation for this podcast. So first, how do you like to be presented?
I think as an anthropologist with a specialization in wellness.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's many ways to introduce me, but
let's say an anthropologist, researcher doing me.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so you're studying borders.
Yeah.
Why borders is an important subject today?
I think in that society we don't talk the way we talk about borders is often only from a perspective of should we close them? Should we close them, or we should protect them better? We should build higher walls, or like I don't know, we should destroy borders. This is as like people also are saying, we should stop the borders, open the borders. Like this is as like simple as the conversation goes. It doesn't go deeper than that. And often we are speaking about migration or about other phenomena. Well, actually, in this phenomena, I think we should be talking about the borders. I think a lot of times, the conversation about borders, should be more present.
Okay. Yeah. So, how we can explain borders to people from an anthropology point of view? Is it any different from the other point of view?
I think every discipline has like a different approach to understand a border. And I think anthropology is that traditionally speaking the discipline that focuses on cultures and how in every different context things are different. So for instance, marriage or sex or religion or gender or food or rituals or dance, like in every context, those are different. Like traditionally speaking, that is what anthropology is talking about. But in the last decades, this idea of culture, how things are always different in any kind of context, is also going beyond groups of people and also to like the products or other phenomena that people are involved in, such as borders. Like a border is not a border is always different. So I think this is like the thing that focuses on how borders are different, to whom they become different, when they become different, in what ways they become different. Like they show themselves in different ways. They can show themselves to people, or they can show themselves to guys with guns. There's so many different ways in which the border can pop up. I think this looking into these differences and understanding these differences, like why is the border popping up like this now here to this person? How did that work versus this other place? I think this is what anthropologists try to understand.
I always feel like people have been moving through borders all the time, or during also human history, but only recently became problematic. It became an issue. Is that actually true, or it's just my my perspective? And if yes, why borders crossing borders has become so problematic, and when actually? Because if I think from like the most familiar with the Indian media attentions about like my grandma and maybe 20, 30 years ago when shopping a little bit and came back and it was so easy, so simple, no problem. If my mom wants to do this today, it's so problematic. Like last year, she wanted to come to visit me in Italy and she couldn't get a visa. The first trial was to get an Italian visa, and the appointment was like after 3 months because of the Olympics that were going on in Paris, and then she was taken from Malta and she got refused, even though she had all the criteria that like make so little criteria. Why crossing the borders is so difficult and when it became actually problematic?
So I think borders are not a new phenomenon. I think they always, but they're always different. So yeah, everything is always different, and it's one month and one. Yeah, and this is stupid. I'm sorry not to use this other word, but it is true. But yeah, so like borders have always, for instance, uh, an example, before maybe cities were more borders. So to enter a certain city, you need to have certain behaviors to enter. This is especially typical for the European context. Like to enter a certain city, you need to have the right papers, and then there was also always falsification of papers. But even before, because also the idea of like, having papers to answer something, that is relatively a modern phenomenon. That is quite new from like about French Revolution, that things started to turn towards papers. And so like, um, so the way borders are there, like, sometimes you have places like a sea that functions as a border, but then it's like kind of the people who say, yeah, that over there is us, and that this they make the distinction between there and there. So because basically this is the kind of like a very important aspect of borders is to create a there and a here. And that is something that is super old. That is super difficult to trace back when that starts. But but how this border is working is constantly changing, and there are some like recent phenomena that for instance, nation states and passports. Passports are only 100 years old. Like it's really relatively new phenomena.
And visas?
And visas, yeah, it's actually that. So those are really modern phenomena that are connected to this transition in the world. Into nation states before there were empires, and then they around 100 years ago, or maybe even 50 years ago, the whole empire started to fall apart, and the world started to split up in. I'm sorry about that. Like I say 50 years ago because I kind of act like it's 2000 right now. I prefer to take the World War, but like after the Second World War, after the First World War, like a lot of new nation states were created. So it's really a recent phenomenon. And that's why in the 50s you saw like a legal nation that's now the United, pushing out a lot of like laws and like efforts to make sure that everyone in the world has an passport. Everyone in the world has nationality. It became like a balance. Like, everyone is a nationality. Everyone is in this needs passports. But it was more like a new way of organizing the world, and by that basically to control people and this movement in a different way. So like I think so that history and like that like those developments, those are very much connected to the story of your grandmother who was able to still travel to Italy because in this moment she had a passport, but there are still things that are not clearly developed. That your mom cannot travel to Italy. And that is a very specific context of Tunisia that the Schengen was created in the end of the 90s, like beginning with 2000s. The Schengen was created, opening all the borders in Europe, but closing the borders around Europe, which is very interesting that the mobility for people in Europe became way high, and the mobility of people outside of Europe became like way more difficult to come to. So that's very interesting. Someone else that increase of privileges or opportunities meant the decrease of opportunities for another group of people. And to really understand that is not another topic, but your question was mostly like you feel that it's now more intense. And I think that is mostly because the way borders operate nowadays is really connected to capitalism, and to be able to because capitalism is all about making sure that the production is as high as possible, and making sure that the profit is as high as possible, and also to be able to quickly get rid of waste or workers, to make sure that you keep your profits as high as possible. And in order to do that, you need borders. So I don't know if I explain it clear enough, but yeah, I don't know if it's very clear.
Yeah, sure. It's very interesting, but also from capitalist perspective, we know that immigration can allow countries to make more profit, because with more employees, you can increase the salaries.
Yeah.
So it's beneficial for capitalism also, even though I don't agree with capitalism, but I know that if you have the market has more employees, you can increase the salaries and increase the profit. So I don't really see that the border go it's profitable for capitalism. Maybe on other sides, but this specific side, having more employees, it allows capitalism to have companies to have more profit. But do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, because like even kijken. Okay, so you need to create a market. You need to create a place where you're going to take all the resources. So it's a specific thing. Like there's a lot of textile industry in Tunisia. Why? Because the environmental laws in Tunisia are like not so good. So it's super expensive to be a textile company in France, because you have to deal with all those environmental laws on how to take care of the water, how to not dump these toxins in the water. The border allows to create these differences, so that Tunisia becomes a place where people are paid less, where the environment is treated differently than France. So the border allows to create these differences on what is the place where you dump our waste, what is the place where we sell, and so that is crucial for capitalism, because also this taking of resources, some places are somehow allowed, or not allowed, but are somehow normalized to plunder resources, and others no way you can plunder resources there. And how is it possible? And that is because there's borders, because there's a difference created between that is there in Tunisia. That moment, this is here. This is here in my country. I won't do that here. No, it's on So you need the difference here and there, the borders, that to also make one profit.
Yeah, you remind me of a conversation that I always have with the Europeans when they say that all the pollution, all the environmental destruction is due to China, because it has a lot of manufacturing, but who is consuming Chinese products? All of us.
Yeah.
So if we want less the environmental damage, we start ourselves that we must use Chinese products. So
But also,
they,
lots of European companies are basically in China.
yeah,
They
so
do their business there.
yeah, all of us are participating. We cannot get out of the responsibility.
Or for instance, like the call centers, like a lot of call centers right now. Who are working for European, like American companies. So like, yeah, the capitalism without borders can survive. Like you need to be able to create those differences to make people more trustworthy, to make resources more trustworthy, to be able to, because you cannot, what are you going to do with your waste in the Netherlands? No, you shift that. You shift that to Asia or Africa. And it's really, because why? Because that is there. But no, what if we leave the waste in the Netherlands? The country would be too small. Like people will not understand. But wow, what is this waste doing here? Yeah.
Yes, it was. You're speaking about the differences in borders that have been changed in the 50s, around the 50s, but also in the 50s, there was a change in the tourism industry, which is another field where border crossing is very important. There has been the democratization of tourism because it became more cheaper and people gained the right to have holidays. So mainly in Europe, holidays slowly became something that we had to do every year.
We have to do it. I'm so sorry, but I have to go on the holiday again. It's not meant to do this.
back, back, if we see the global tourists, 50% of global tourists are European and 5% are African. But we know most people will say that this is also economic capacity, but we know that it's not only that. So, what are the barriers for African to travel, and how you can describe the situation?
Ja, misschien ja. Ja, dus ja. So what are the barriers for applicants to travel? That could be very simple with visa. And the other question was, how could you describe the situation
Yeah.
of like this development from
What are like the causes and the impact of this incapacity to travel?
So I think if you look at like the visa system, some people call it the visa regime. The countries that now are under visa obligations are often countries that were formerly colonized. So the countries that are like very good passports and like most no visa problems are the countries that used to be colonized. Or like you know like associated like with the Western and everything. So there's like so that's just like the causes of these obstacles are very much rooted in this colonial history, where colonial history was all about freedom and liberty. Actually, it was about colonizers exercising their right of freedom and liberty, maar we stonden precies ours, precies van all of us. And then we would arrive in like the Americas or another place, and the local community would not welcome them so much, or they would not be interested to do trade with them. And that they would see that as how to say, a violation of their rights to mobility or a violation to their rights of trade, and that deserves a genocide. This is basically how like the first scholars of international law, the first jurists of international law, kind of argued in favor of war, in favor of violence, like how to explain it, or like how to justify that. So actually, in a time of colonization, freedom of mobility is super important because without freedom of mobility, how are you going to colonize the world? Okay, so maybe I should not like go into all the history of like I came from far, I came from far. Okay, but like also like the abolition of slavery was very much like a decision that is connected to profits. It was more profitable to get asylum. So all of these like changes, but and then those the states that used to be colonized, they became like nation states, etc. All this history Oh yeah, and then it is like at the moment that those people want to move out of their own will, like so not because of like because they've been enslaved and the colonizers decides like oh well, what to put you there? No, because they had their own desires to go from this place to another way. They found like ways to just. So before it was like I have the rights to visibility and you need to prove to me other prove to me why I don't have access to this place. Like it's your responsibility as a sovereignty to prove why I am allowed in this place. Now it's very interesting. You can really read this history of how that stood, how responsibility became on the individual to prove why they have the right to access that place. And yeah, and there's still the ability, but the sovereignty of the country became way more important. Like to be able to say that we're not allowed became way more important. And that is really to do with yeah, the fact that they want to control this movement of people that suddenly indeed emancipate and were able to, and also together, very much together with the industrial revolution, so with these huge ships that came, and like, so also the way you travel was way more, became in way emancipated, like with the train coming in, like all these like transport things that were developed that suddenly travel became more accessible for more people needed also more people started to move and like these huge hours for these big colonizers or were in this one still colonizing, they want to control us. So they found a way, and that's mostly through nationality. Through nationality, they found a way to control that again. And through the passport, they found a way to control it there. And in the 30s of the 20th century, there was still like this meeting of the nations, and there were still people who were saying, "Guys, I really think that the passport system is not a good idea. I think it is discriminative because this person, it was he saw that there was like there was differences between nationality. Like if you have a Canadian nationality versus the Indian nationality, there's differences between that. So he thought like, well, I think it is fostering discrimination and but a lot of no one listened to me, and they were like, "No, we can't. It's just no, it's really good idea to organize the world." And yeah, and so about the echo coins were not started so much, like in these statistics, what you were saying. Yeah, it's very thousands of that. It's very much this colonial history and this passport system and visas. Yeah, and then some might also argue that the infrastructure is not as developed everywhere. So like for instance, if you want to fly inside of Africa, the flight tickets are very expensive. Compared to flying in Europe, and for so like train, all of this like also infrastructure is sometimes not as suited for it.
But speaking of nationality and visa, do you think that visa procedures are uh, are conform to human rights? Considering that in human rights, you know that you cannot take different people dating on nationality, but also visa is requested from some nationalities and not from the others. So there is a difference maybe between people from different basis on their nationalities. But we know from human rights point of view, we cannot make differences between people based on their nationality. So is visa procedure conform to human rights, do you think?
That's very good. I think a lot of things in the world that are not us are not conformed to human rights. So I think, yeah, the answer is easy, of course not. But then, yeah, I also wonder if that is the best way of using it, because in the end, like, there's states, of course, in a way they do, yeah, I would almost say that those states don't care about human rights, but like, it's not the main principles necessarily that there are so many other like interests that they take into consideration apart from human rights.
That's why human rights are out there. Why we should do the human rights.
Yeah. What should we do with human life? Yeah, like, to be honest, I find the whole human rights thing very difficult because I've had this kind of this cute list of beautiful things, beautiful process that is kind of being used whenever they want. Like, so whenever the state is not doing what they want, or there's also some other interest underneath that, I cannot trade right now. I cannot make a lot of. They're like, oh, but there's also this happening. Human rights. Like, I don't know. I feel like it is just like a very easy thing to kind of like make yourself look so good and like hide other interests that are underneath it. And then say, like, I'm really fighting for human rights. But like, what are you really fighting for? Um, so yeah. Also, like I think human rights. I wonder. It's a question. I wonder if it really speaks to everyone. If it speaks really to everyone, because I think because of all this discrimination, because of all this racism, Islamophobia, all of these things, to truly believe in humanity and to truly love humanity, this is already such a challenge. So how could you be a defender of human rights when you live in a world that is just soaked in all of this discrimination? So, like, yeah, I don't know. I think the best way to approach things is based on, I don't know, like how you want to be treated. You should also treat the other person. This is coming from biology, but I think this is something that is also not just like a Bible text or something, but like also just such a logical thing, and such a thing that people will understand. Like um, if someone realizes like, oh, we're doing this now to this person, and I also would not want this to happen to me, then suddenly there's like they open up and they start to understand. So if we're talking about orders, um, if we would be talking about travel to Europeans and to other people who have all these privileges, if we talk to them about like travel, like look, like all these things that you can do, but these people are not able to do that. And there is, because the thing about the visa problem is an unknown problem in Europe. Like in Europe, like it's so normal to indeed like, go on a holiday this 3 times per year, and especially go abroad. Like now we have this new trend in the Netherlands of doing a holiday in your own country. It started since COVID, because then people couldn't go abroad, and now we have this amazing trend to do a holiday in your own country. Wow, it's also in my own country, because it's super, super normalized to just always go abroad. And I also remember in COVID, there was a friend in me, like, I love her so much, nothing to criticize her, but she told me like, yeah, and now with COVID, it's been 3 years since I've been abroad. And like, it's like so normalized to go abroad, so normalized to go abroad, to think about studying abroad. Ah, yeah, to do a sabbatical. Someone passed away in your family. You really need some a time up. You do a sabbatical in Bali for a few weeks or maybe months. You know, like it becomes so normalized. All this traveling and all this, like, especially far places. And I think I told you this before, like I was working in customer service. I really like to share this story, but I was working in customer service, like around the COVID period, and of a big travel organization. And there in this time you need to get a booster vaccination to go to Austria, to go on a winter tour. And I had it, and so many people were upset because they had their winter sports booked. And then, now there was this group of policy from the Austria that you need to have, if there's a condition to enter Austria, that you have this booster vaccination. But in the Netherlands this time, we couldn't get access to this booster vaccination. So all the people that were travel plans would be cancelled. They would maybe also lose money or not. Like we were trying to figure out with the travel company, like how to organize that good, to not have too many paying customers. But they could also just, there was one guy who called me. I will never forget this conversation. He was like, "Yes, but madam, like explained to me there is no border control in Europe, right? Like it's the Schengen zone, so there's no border police at the border of Austria. So I could just go to Austria, even though I don't have the use case of vaccination. And even I could be in a hotel because due to the privacy laws, apparently privacy laws in Europe, they cannot just check my vaccination test. So I could just go. And I said, yes, but I hope you realize that if you are going to go on a municipal holiday without a booster vaccination to Austria, you are traveling illegally. So these people, this man, and like there was not the only person who was like asking me about how much are they going to control, suggesting they would be okay to just go illegally. Like how quickly, just for a holiday, they would be okay to travel illegally. But that's like those stories. I would bring them together with the people who just want to travel and see or overstay their visas. Like it's not so difficult to make this choice to not completely respect the conditions of the border. It's not so difficult. But the difference is that this guy is doing it because he wants to go on a winter sports holiday, and the other guy is doing it because he cannot find a job in Toulouse and he knows friends who has a barber shop in Marseille and he knows he can go work there as a hairdresser. So like to get some money for a stick spot or something. The situations are like different. And then so like I think we can bring these stories together, right? Like really like how much are you traveling abroad? Like when is the last time you traveled abroad? And compared to Tunisians who never left that country, who never ever went abroad. And so in this I think this is very much unknown, like uh that there's no access to like the legal ways of traveling for Africans. I think there's really consciousness about that is super low. And I think COVID was an amazing time for Europeans to finally have a little bit of. I think COVID was amazing that it happened. Not for Muslims, no, but like a lot of people died. And it's like a lot of things is spoiled. Regarding travel, it has been so interesting for the European consciousness to become a little bit aware of how it is that your mobility is a little bit disrupted and how it could be. So I think that's a wonderful like entrance point to start a conversation on how the mobility of many people in Africa are possibly being restricted due to
Yeah.
inside inside the cloud, xenophobia, racism, all these things.
Indeed, during COVID, I had lots of good conversations where people, Europeans, were saying how exactly they restrict our travel. It's like our rights, our basic rights, and they all saying we are not just because we are used to it.
Yeah.
That's like another law that restricts traveling. It's not such a thing. But you chose Tunisia to make this your research. Why Tunisia? You told me about the situation in Germany and how it has different patterns from different nationalities. So why Tunisia and what are the I'm alone. The patterns that we'll see in Tunisia regarding the border process?
I come from, I studied urban English and culture, and then I started to read a lot about Tunisia, and I was immediately very interested in Tunisia. And I was always interested in like migration, and then slowly I became less interested in migration because, but I became more interested in borders. So, and then I learned about Harpa, but then actually also I learned about the visa centers. And then I found out that there's not so much like research people like me that to be like there's a lot of journalists in Tunisia who write on these problems, but like in at the universities they don't write so much like visa procedures, especially not like tourist visas. They mostly focus on refugees, on family reunification, and then the understanding stuff or in illegality with nationality. So very much also like on what is happening in the territory and like in the destination country regarding people and regarding all of this bureaucratic stuff, but not on all this bureaucracy that's happening overseas, what's happening in the like origin country, like departure country. So I saw like really a big gap of knowledge in that. I was like, wow. And then Tunisia, because it's been always in the news around like that's the word people don't know how can like illegal and the word is Tunisia for people who cross the Mediterranean Sea and without right papers, but also people who are overstaying the visa. So basically people who are crossing the border through illegal ways. So this is kind of like because like Tunisia is so much like all these people that are stepping to the boat and like there's all these people coming our way. It's really super interesting to look into like this other like forgotten part, this forgotten world of like the visa situation. So that's a bit like how I came to Tunisia. So specifically about disease, I find that a very interesting place regarding the border because there's like all these different people coming there together and you see how they have
There are
all
Tunisians
like the
like
different
introduced
relationship with the
who would
border
like
or like the
to
border
go
that's shooting down in
to
a different case.
New York,
So
either because they either have the visa, like a family invitation, a work contract, whatever way, studying the language, or trying to find a way to Europe, or they are warm hopper. And then in the summer, like all these people who did Hakka and found papers and have papers and so are able to come in the summer back to Tunisia. You come there and they have like, the car and everything and there are washes. So there's all of this tension around this, like crossing the border and who can make it and who cannot. And so it's just this struggle to get there. But at the same time, this local population is just suffering from the fact that all these local resources, such as salt and other like resources in this area, sponges, are being just also olives, are just going in big spots, crossing the border, there's no like told by boats, like crossing the borders, no problem. Like all the resources and products can just go like that, and they are like struggling so much. But the like the resources from the land are just like taken away like that. And also the amount of money that is being paid for those resources is very, very little. So, and they see how their landscapes are changing because of all this mining and plundering. So they're seeing like these kind of like difference in how they relate to the border, and how the border opens for some and closes for others. And then in the same time, you have now oh yeah, and then at the same time, also like 2 years ago, I think it was in 2022, or like a lot of big disaster that took place. The boat was missing, and later a lot of bodies were found, and a lot of miners from the local population refugees who were on this boat, and that affected Francisco. And that has also affected so much the population. So many families have been affected. And until this day, there's so much uncertainty on like really what happened at that point. And how people are cited that and lost all contact, and weird things that happened with the bodies that suddenly popping up in the cemetery without no one knowing who were those bodies, but people. So it's like a lot of like drama, really like a lot of pain. And then it's really like the border of Europe, that they are facing. And then at the same time, we have now like a lot of increase of people come up to Sudan, in Nigeria, but mostly Sudan. And I mostly saw met a lot of people from Sudan, but from a lot of different countries, sub-Saharan. That are in countries. Why are in countries? Because there is UNHCR office there where they can register, and their ability in Tunisia, they are facing the border of Tunisia. Like they need to wait for a certain like registration in the UNHCR before they can TTC travel with Tunisia, because if they are being catched and managed by the police and they did not register themselves yet, then they will be like detained, or it's not typical to know so that. So like so it's very important. They need to wait there to get registered. And maybe they might also have access to like the shelter in the beam, but there's also a lot of transport up there, so there's not a lot of place for everyone. And those offices go really, really slow, and they're not processing so fast. So people are waiting for months on the streets to get an appointment to get registered, to get their cars that they registered there, the UNHCR. And for months they're in those on the streets, trying to find ways to get water, to get food. Luckily, the local population is often very kind to them, and giving water, giving food, and taking care. But they are mostly sitting on the street, and especially in summer, it's super tough. You cannot find water, and And so what happens is that these people, if they don't have any place to sleep or, proper house, they will be washing the stuff in the sea. And then we find another wolf to go there. And that is the tourists. The tourists also from Europe that enjoyed all-inclusive, yes, and that didn't feel anything about it. Yet the border is shaping the experience so they came without any obstacle. They arrived in visa. They didn't have any visa with border control. They didn't come without visa. And also the border is in a way defining their experience, because for instance when we have this huge shortage on different food products, big shortage on salt or on flour and sugar. No way for water. Always in the summer there's a shortage on water. No way that the all-inclusive hotels are affected. And that is also we're bordering between where are the tourists. So you see that the border is not only that Mediterranean Sea, not only the border towards Europe. No, but there's a lot of open borders. So we're bordering that English all-inclusive hotels. There should be enough Coca-Cola, enough school gas, sugar, etc. And sugar and nothing. Also, they need coffee. Oh, you mean they're gonna find coffee? But people know this person hated coffee. And also food and water and everything. But the rest of the disease is making hot up with water. So these is an extremely interesting place. Because in one observation, you can see the different groups and these different interaction with the borders, and seeing them, one to some tourists that's swimming in the sea, next to a person from Sudan washing themselves, cleaning themselves, and then with the local population so you see really how all of these people have such a different experience with this place. And why do we have all such a different experience? And that is really because the way the borders are drawn, and here and there are places, and the nationality plays a huge role in that. So I think this story also really calls for migration scholars that are so focused on disputes on versus anti-cultural and should really improve the socio-economic situation of the people and societies. That is 100% true. I want everyone's socio-economic status to be improved. I would never say no to that. But like this, if you put the conversation that it's all about socio-economic situation, why people want to move, and you completely ignore that there is a border out there that's creating those different experiences, that I don't really enjoy. I think we should very much, and I think we can look more critically and more. It becomes more evident how the border works when we take into consideration also tourism, where often the border is stimulating the movement So I really like that non-pitch said in the beginning of 50% of tourists are Europeans and 5% are Africans, because we have similar statistics on migration. And then we might see that Europeans are not migrating so much, not migrating outside of Europe. But if we would take into consideration how much their tourism, how much they're just traveling outside of Europe, we would have different numbers. So also our statistics would change if we would bring migration numbers and tourism numbers together. Then we would really see that who is truly traveling around in this world, and then we would be less like fetishizing over those people going to the sea or people overstaying their visas at France, because we would understand that that mobility of those people is like this compared to the nobility of Europeans that can go anywhere. That can also suddenly open a bed and breakfast in Bali, and suddenly, or in South Africa, and somehow they can do that. Somehow there are no like paper walls. Okay. Of course, they have also problems with local bureaucracies, but no one is ever posing a question on the integration problem of those Europeans in Bali. Well, actually,
Because they're from expect.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's different. You are doing your research, but also you are doing the theater show. What got you into speaking about the same subject in the theater shows?
Yeah, nice that you bring that up. So I think my research will be like a book, and even though I didn't know my mom loves me so much and she would try to read it, I really wonder if she will read it from the first page to the last, because it will be a long book with a lot of academic language and blah blah. And it will be also a lot of beautiful stories, but like, yeah, who's really going to read that piece? So I really had a new feeling from the beginning of my PhD. As I was on my PhD right now, I was really thinking I need to also find a different way to reach a bigger audience. And even more so, I didn't want I'm going to Europe and I'm going to say, listen guys, there is a visa problem and we need to talk about that. I wanted people in Europe to listen to the stories of Tunisians who went through this labyrinth procedure. Because we haven't done so much about like how this visa procedure looks like, how Kafka it is, how like, yeah. So I wanted people in Europe to listen to Tunisians, to be face to face with Tunisians who went through that. And another very strong desire is that in all of this then work on visa procedures, because borders are many things. It can be drones on the Mediterranean Sea, it can be checkpoint, it can be so many things, but I focus on visas. I am obsessed with payments and all of that, on this bureaucracy. I find that very interesting. How you go through all this like paper drama. But and that paper drama is mostly like in the academic literature that speak about the documentation version, how the paper reality is kind of like defining a lot of situations and other realities are being ignored or being obscured. And so if I'm like writing another book, I'm not a piece of paper, that felt also a little bit like I had this strong urgency and desire to then return to the body, to return to the body, from all the paper to return to the body, and to kind of like, find a way to make the realities again visible that get lost from paper. And this is kind of like how this idea for a theater show was created. And then I started working with Got Smit, a theater maker in the Netherlands, and she is specialized in puppetry, marionette. And then it was like super good idea to also involve marionette and puppetry. Not only because with puppets you can kind of control the movement of the puppet, so you can really show how movement is visual, but also because puppets are actually able to make movements that human beings cannot. Like they can do backflips and crazy things that human beings cannot. So there's also kind of like freedom of mobility in puppets that the human being maybe might not have. So this is like why I think that through the discipline of theater, there's we not only have the opportunity to reach a wider audience, but also to explore this topic of mobility of visa procedures paper in a new way, in a different from different folks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this, hopefully, and I can make it. So thank you for this interview, to this whole chat with everyone, and I hope to see you soon in the theater.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Yeah, and I hope that people enjoyed. And I'm sorry I was a bit like all over this with all English, like
Enjoy.